Hi, how are you? This is Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, and this is the Mindfully Integrative Show. Today's mindful chat is with Julia Corracio. I roll my R's, but she is an amazing award-winning author. She told me it's 15 books. I thought it was just a few. 15 books that she writes about decluttering your life. Her business is called Reawaken Your Balance. Is that correct? And
Reawaken your brilliance.
your brilliance. Oh, I apologize. And she's just an amazing woman. She's a lot to share with you today in the integrative health space about decluttering your life. And would you realize how important that is? That, we have a cluttered mind. We can't clean out the rest of our life. So talk to us about this. It's so nice to meet you, Julie.
Thanks for having me. So, yeah, I'm very passionate about helping people clear clutter in all areas of their lives. Most of the time, people are going to focus on the physical stuff. The people in my industry have started to move towards mental, but for a long time, I'm like, it's so much more than that. You can have clutter in your relationships, health, energetic clutter, right? We're on a
100%.
mindfulness
Yeah.
show. People are going to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense to me, right? So we're the sum of all our parts. And so
Right.
if one area is out of whack, it's going to affect everything. Like, so for example, if you have a cluttered space, that's going to affect you mentally, right? Because you
100%.
can't think, right? If I've got all this clutter around, how can I focus? How can I get those answers within? If I have a cluttered space, I can't do it. Or if your bed's unmade and your bedroom is all out of whack, you're not going to be able to get a good night's sleep, which is the foundation of health. And so then you've got health clutter.
Yeah. Absolutely. We'll have to dive into this more. I always ask a fun fact about you that people may not know that you'd like to share.
Well, so one good thing about COVID was I started a plant medicine course. And because of COVID, it was offered online and I just got my certification. So I'm super
So
into
what's your
plant
favorite plant?
medicine.
Plant herb medicine or just like plant
Yes,
medicine?
like herbal, and it's called a year of Gaia, and she brings in folklore and all this cool
Love
stuff.
it.
I mean, it's phenomenal what I've learned. And so what I'm really into and want to expand on is flower essences, is taking
Ooh.
like, so Bach, if you've heard of Bach flower remedies,
Oh,
so doing
yum.
something similar to that. Yeah. So
Oh,
that's
that
my
sounds
fun fact.
cool. What's your favorite herb or plant so far right now?
What I'm really enjoying is hibiscus.
Ooh, hibiscus. Oh my God, it tastes so good too. Oh my God, it's so delicious.
It is. It's very, so that's like a
And
nice,
it's
cool, refreshing drink for the summer.
Oh yeah, that's really good. Oh, nice. Love it. Yeah, it's so cool how herbs and plants can do so much more than all the pharmaceutical stuff. So it's just people don't realize it just takes time. Just takes a little time.
It does.
So yeah, I'd love for you to chat about that at another time when you're in a further another podcast time. So let's chat about kind of where you came from, right? So I put things in this integrative health space because there's many aspects of getting healthier. So let's chat about where your story kind of comes from. How did you kind of get to this point?
Well, I was in a crazy job. I moved from Los Angeles to Raleigh, North Carolina, and a job that I had, that I was like, I don't want to do this. So what can I do that they're all nuts here, that I can make money, right? I'm a single woman, have to make living at the time. But I want to make a difference in people's lives. And so I was like, I'm going to do organization. But the more I did the work, and at the same time, I'm doing a international TV show online called Reawaken Your Brilliance. I'd go to a studio and interview body, mind, spirit experts. I do a lot of personal growth work. And then I had this aha moment working with a client, and she's like, can we just talk? And I was like, sure, you're the client. And she's like, I can tell you're a little freaked out. But so we talked about like what's behind the clutter, right? And after that, we did
Absolutely.
maybe 3 hours of talking, and then boom, within an hour, she was able to clear her physical clutter. Like it never had happened that quickly with any client that I'd had. And I was like, it's about the clutter. And I said, and I need to bring all my personal growth stuff into it, right? Like you can have spiritual clutter. Are you able to forgive? Are you able to have gratitude? And so that kind of what informs what I do with people.
That makes a lot of sense. I talk a lot about the mindful ways, and you're part of that in a very like small way of saying it, like, but it's really very big. Like
Yeah.
it all emulates in where you are. Um, I had to learn declutter through being so scattered as a young and learning disability, and I had to learn decluttering because of it was necessity, you know, but it
Mhm.
was like, oh, wait, if I don't declutter, I'm never going to get anything done.
Right, right, yeah.
So, and I can imagine your clients, you know, do you have, or just even for yourself, what made you kind of go into that realm of decluttering? Did you find yourself decluttering your life first and then going into others after?
Well, personal growth has always been a huge part of my life
Okay.
ever since I was a kid. And then when I lived in Los Angeles, I went to clairvoyant school and learned energy healing
Oh,
for
wonderful.
13 months. And that was about clearing your energetic clutter.
Oh, so that
If
in
we have
itself is a
something,
clutter.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But, if we don't work through a trauma, it stays with us.
Oh,
Right.
100%. Yes.
So, we had, unfortunately, on Monday, we had to put our 19-year-old cat down. And so we
Mm.
had some time with them, but I was crying and crying and crying. And what I realized was I was also grieving my mother who had passed last year, right? Because I was so busy helping caregiving. And then we had to do the celebration of life. And then we were moving and blah, 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 right? And so I didn't have that time and that space to grieve and cry for my mother. And so that's an example of something that was creating other clutter because I'm distracted. I'm not feeling my feelings. I'm emotionally eating. So that's what that's why you have to look at all areas of life, because how does one affect the other?
Yeah, no. I mean, they're 100% like they're correlated, or they're connected. So I mean, I'm a
Yes.
big fan of, or I'm a big believer of everything is connected, just like energy is not created or destroyed. So yes, I can understand where you're coming with that. What I'm sorry to hear about your mom passing. When you were trying to, because you're obviously trying to work with clients and with their growth and their, was that challenging to work with them at that time, or were you able to kind of
It was a
compartmentalize?
compartmentalized, and it was a nice distraction. And I also cut back. I had to
Okay.
be realistic, right? I'm like, I'm going to
Right.
be very selective with what I do. And so
Yeah.
that was very helpful.
Okay. Wow. What would you like to kind of talk about either a client or how you kind of work in this declutter space? Like, and then I know you wrote 15 books. So if you want to discuss with us one of those books, I would love for you to talk about it.
Sure. Well, why don't I'm a huge fan of concrete examples. So why don't I share a couple of my favorites?
Absolutely. I would love that.
So when I first started my business, I was working with a woman and she had a stack of clutter, not clutter, excuse me. So she had a stack of these articles. It was about 2 or 3 feet tall. And I said, well, what are these? And she said, oh, those are articles and recipes that I've clipped that I'm going to send to family and friends. And I said, okay, how long have we had these? And she said, a couple years. I just haven't gotten around to sending these. So as we started to talk, and I'm sure as you believe, we all have the wisdom within. So I see my view as holding space for that wisdom to come to the surface because everyone knows what's best for them. And as we're talking, she said, oh my gosh, I think if I don't send people articles and keep in touch, that they aren't going to love me anymore. And as soon as she said that,
Oh,
she knew that wasn't true. So we chucked that whole stack into the bin, and that opened up space for her to focus on her music. Her music, she was passionate about that, had been on the back burner. But once she cleared the space in that room and started to get that energy going, she was able to focus on a passion. I also had a client who was recently married, and the dining room table was a dumping ground for everything, right? They just, both the husband and wife, and would just throw everything there. But it was affecting their marriage, right? Because they couldn't have dinner together. They couldn't have that
oh
time to,
gosh.
check in and reflect
Right.
upon the day. As soon as we cleared that, it completely helped the marriage. And then I had another client who's my first ever
That's
client.
really big. I mean, I'm very, very big on like, so I mean I have little ones. So it's like me and my husband, he comes home from work or when I'm off from work. And I'm very big on having family together and having dinner. I mean, it's nothing, doesn't always have to be fancy or lunch or whatever, but we always have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. If
Exactly.
it's home for lunch, but like because it's just a time to connect. And I'm like, all right, no phone. Well, for the most part, I would say 80% no phone and let's eat. And I think it's so important. I love that my mom and dad had instilled that in us when we were younger. To
Hmm.
just like have a meal together is just huge. I don't think everybody gets to do that, whatever meal it
Right.
is.
Right. No, but it does. It really, I love that you're reinforcing that, because people say, oh, come on, there's clutter on the dining room table. How much can it be affecting everything? Well, it was having a huge impact on their marriage.
No, I bet it can be. And the funny thing that you're saying about having that clutter there, My toddler actually, I don't know, it was it kind of forced, I mean, I didn't have a lot there, but I had enough that it was like, oh, I got to get stuff off. And sure enough, he started to come climbing up on the dining room table and started pulling things off. And I was like, oh, this is a decluttered moment. So I
Yeah.
was learning myself. I'm like, oh, this needs to be go. So in a way, now we have nothing on there except for maybe one thing, I think of paper towels or something. So
Right.
and yeah, it forced us. I was definitely it was a forced declutter. I mean, I'm not telling people to have their toddler going destroyed, but I can imagine what people's like rooms were like.
Yeah. And so I think that it's just having that understanding again, like, wow, I didn't really realize how much of the impact, or, the thing I want people to consider is what roadblock is clutter creating for them. So, for instance, you're like,
Hmm.
oh, it's an overstuffed closet. Well, and maybe it's preventing a relationship from blooming, right? Someone comes over and sees that closet, like, ooh, and maybe makes some assumptions, or they've done studies that coworkers, if you have a messy desk, people trust you less. And maybe you're not getting that promotion because people walk into your office and they're like, oh, no, I don't trust that person. Right. So it's thinking about the bigger picture. What is it preventing you from doing? Or like my client that I mentioned a moment ago couldn't focus on music. This whole stack of papers was interfering with that. And as soon as you take that first step, as soon as you start going, then the energy shifts, everything's changed. You're like, oh, okay, I let go of this, I can let go of something else. If our life is crammed with stuff, we can't call into our life what we desire. We're
Hmm.
just hanging around in that stuck, stagnant energy.
And I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I definitely have some junk drawers though. I would have to say for myself. So how did you were you able to write 15 books? That's what and which of the books is ones that is your near and dear to you?
It's like, who's my favorite cat? That's a hard question. I love to write. I've always considered myself a writer. And
That's
then I did the
awesome.
podcast, and the podcast was doing well. And I said, I'm just going to take some of these episodes and kind of make them into, because I know many people are visual, so they could sit down. And I
Right.
wanted, one thing that's important to me is, there are times in my life where I didn't have a lot of money, and that I wanted to offer, people the option. You have a free podcast and then a book that's affordable if you can't do coaching or take a class. And so just to give people options. And then, so that one, Clear Your Clutter Inside It Out, is 21 chapters. It focuses on physical, mental, emotional, spiritual clutter, and a bonus energetic clutter, which your audience will understand. But I wanted to introduce that concept to people perhaps who weren't familiar. But it's really more hand holding, and really like, here are your take actions at the end of each chapter. And then I started the journal prompt series, which relationships, health, holiday, right? And so there are
Love it.
365 questions you can ask each day. And one thing I do a little differently is when you open up and you have a question, I have a line with a lotus at the end. And so after you've answered the
Me and lotuses too.
question,
You and I.
yes, you
I love
do
it.
on
Yeah.
your thing. And I haven't seen that in journal prompt books. And so what I explain in the how to is, if you feel moved, go through and highlight and pick out or write on the side, what are the most important points I need to remember when asking this question? Because a lot of times when people have clutter, they're super overwhelmed. So this is just one more step to break it down, to make it manageable, to make it less overwhelming. And at the end, I say, hey, here's how to move forward. Here's how you can have a plan of action. And then my last book is a 21-day declutter your life. If you're like, wow, I'm just super overwhelmed. Okay, it's all right. We have 21 days. We're going to do this. Super easy questions. And then again, a plan to take action. Because for me, awareness plus action equals change. We either miss that first
I
part of being
completely
aware.
agree with you. Oh my God, that's in my awareness and action. Oh, you couldn't have said that better.
But
Ding
that's so
ding. I hope
important.
those that are listening. So
Right. And
important.
so that's what it is. I want to, in every book, create awareness for you, then action, because I want you to change your life, because I want you sharing your gift with the world. We would live in such a different place if everyone was doing what they were passionate about and they felt excited and it felt joyful doing.
I could not agree with you more. I seriously. So I want those listening to be able to go and reach out on your website. It's reawaken your brilliance, correct? .com.
Yep. Reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
All right, I'm gonna definitely have that in the show notes. I can relate to you on the 365 days because I'm also writing on the 365 days in the mindful way. And you are 100% correct with that awareness and action. I just talk on a a webinar series and like my A's of wellness, and it's awareness and action are on that. It's a lot of people can talk about something, but if they don't actually take and implement some sort of actionable step, I can't, I can't make them do it. I want them
Absolutely.
to.
Right.
So have you ever had challenges with some of your clients getting past those blocks?
Oh yeah. I mean, and, what's interesting again, like it's this I had donated hours and I had a woman, and this is again like the impact that clutter can have. So I'm going through and pairing socks, right? And it was like it's a bunch of socks. And so anyway, she started to open up, and something about the socks triggered a memory of abuse.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so at that point, I was like, get you through the session. Then, I'm going to suggest that you go with someone who's more qualified
Right,
to
right.
support you in this. But that powerful moment, I think, I don't know if challenging is the right word. I see my job is to hold space for that. I was able to hold space for her to allow this memory to come up, to honor it. And then who can we find that can support you more with digging a little deeper and figuring out how you need to heal and move forward. The only other challenging thing I've had twice where husbands were not happy that wives were decluttering.
Were
And
they not wanting to clutter either? They didn't want to declutter.
well, one was I told the woman, and our solution, I said, your husband's a hoarder. And it's continuing to get worse based on what she had told me about the progression. And so my job was to carve out a little space for her where she would have a computer, a little chair to meditate. And then the other one, they had adopted kids, and, they had a home visit coming up. And she was like, I have to get this in order. But he was like really angry. Like he read her email that I was coming over. And it was the one time I was like, said to my husband, I don't know if we were engaged at the time. I was like, here's the address. Here are the hours I'm going to be here. Cause he just was really, and, I had to say, help what I could, but I was like, your husband's going to need more supportive help for people who are hoarders, but
Right. There's a whole other mental health compartment
right.
of this. Yeah. But
So I'd say
that's
those, yeah.
challenging. That's, I mean, in itself, because the fact that you're trying to help one client and then the partner is adding in the stressors and not supportive of the whole journey. And that's I do talk about that in a general sense when it comes to health and you're building up an optimal, your wellness journey, right? If you don't have the buy-in of your family or whoever is your partner, your colleagues, it can be struggle, to get that connection, to get, into the next step. I was it. I must have been. I mean, that's not challenging. Must have been. Did it go well? Like, long term.
It did. We were able to do what we could, but then after that, I had to I can't control that.
Right.
And one
Of
thing that I
course.
do is I do an assessment. I talk to people before ever going in their homes, and so I have only once in my life someone lied to me because I'm like, I don't work with hoarders. I'm very clear on that. And I walked in the house and she said, my clutter only extends 16 inches from the wall. And according to the hoarding site, you're a hoarder at 18 inches or something that was,
stop. Oh my.
yeah, that was
What you
really,
could do is you can have them send you videos of their house.
oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Nowadays I do so much online. So I've had to like really change a lot of modify some of my health so in one part because I do a lot of working with people with their pantry and like figuring out their toxins and what their products are. So it's like,
right.
oh, show me a video where you're at, and like we'll talk. So yeah, have them take a video.
So that's a good idea. I mean, I have been doing online. And so I did someone's closet yesterday. And so she sat there with the iPad and did everything. But this was, gosh, back when I first started.
Oh
so
yeah, of course. I mean,
and they were local
recently,
too.
I just started doing those kind of more, just to kind of get, no, I totally, but
and that was hard. Cause the good thing was, I mean, my heart broke for her because her son said, we're not bringing over the grandchild until there's just too much here. And so she had wanted to find something and we found it. And then I was able to give her a referral. I'm like, if you're ready to haul this off, this guy will pay you. He'll come and haul off. And I said, but you need someone who specializes in hoarding. And I had to phrase that very delicately because she didn't want to believe. And I said, I just don't have the tools. And, and she followed up with me and she said, oh, your guy came out and, isn't going to give me money because is just junk and he'd have to lose it. And so I said, well, let me call him. And he said, I can't sell any of this. He said, I have to make money if I'm going to spend my time and haul off stuff, which, I'm doing a downsizing with my neighbor. And I get it. I'm like, they have to be able to come in and all of that. But that was just heartbreaking because, she was holding on to all that junk and she couldn't see or hear or understand that it was junk.
That's tough. Wow. I hope she kind of grew from that a little bit.
I hope she found someone who was an expert in that because, you have to do in my understanding, not only the physical stuff, but have someone mental health on board as well.
Oh, yeah. So there's that's another level of decluttering and mental health issues. Yep. So there's a mental, physical, but you're getting to the beginning stages, which is so important. And those that are not that severe. So, which is a majority of the population that just need general organization, and like just a reset, like the conversation. Like I just said, I have a junk drawer. Why do I have junk drawers? Like, or why do I have one
Don't call it the junk drawer. That's my number one tip. And I've been saying that way before the home edit said it.
So why do we call it the junk drawer? Please explain.
So what you call something, it becomes. If I say I'm a jerk, I become a jerk. If I hang out with jerks, I'll become a jerk. Right. So it's a mind shift. Like if I call the junk drawer, well, I'm just going to throw junk in it. Right. What motivation do I have to declutter it, to organize? I have none. I'm just going to throw it in the junk drawer. It's junk. Who cares? Right. Okay. So create Coraccio catch-all, cyber fix-it station, come up with a name that makes you say, okay, this is what goes there. And then that's going to force you to declutter it and organize it and put stuff together that makes sense. Like maybe you have all your stuff to do mailings. Like I have to mail things. So maybe you have to.
I actually did that, but I was wondering if one of the drawers, I'm like, oh, what do you call, why do they call it the junk drawer? I'm like, oh, it's just like but I feel like, for example, I have a kitchen junk drawer. That's what I call it. And then
like a catch-all, sometimes people call it that.
Oh, catch-all. I like catch-all. All right, I'm gonna say that one. Maybe that'll start getting me to, because but the mail one, no, I figured that one out. I got you on that. No, I was just wondering, but that's good. That makes sense when you start changing the conversation and your words. And so important. So important. What was your most favorite thing to clean and declutter?
Well, my most favorite thing, I think for me,
what is like an area that you enjoy decluttering? Is it mostly physical stuff or is it more energetic?
Well, no, when we get more into the spiritual and the emotional, and when people have those aha moments and make that connection for themselves and seeing that burden released and then seeing how things open up and they can create what they desire. And that whole thing, part of me, for me, that's just the most beautiful part of the process.
That's awesome. That's really great. Is there anything additional that you would like to share? One of your, additional stories or a mindful way for the audience so that they're going to.
I just want people to remember that they are good enough, they are worthy, and they are loved no matter what. We're either coming from fear or hate or anger, whatever the bottom is for you for that, or we're coming from love. And if we feel good enough, we don't need to collect physical stuff, right? Because then we don't get jealous because we're not keeping up the Joneses because we feel good about ourselves. If we feel loved, we won't have relationship clutter and have relationships that aren't healthy and people who, want to run over our boundaries and stuff. And just remember that you can change. 10 minutes a day adds up to just over 60 hours in a year. That's, a week and a half of work. That's a lot of time. So start small, build upon that, and just keep going.
I enjoy where you said 10 minutes a day. I talk about 10 minutes just in I talk about 5 minutes in just mindfulness and then 10 minutes of another. Oh, it's beautiful. I think people, they spend more time flipping through their phones on the social media than they do sitting and really trying to reconnect with themselves. I could not agree more with you with boundaries. I mean, that's a whole other topic we could have a podcast about and trying to talk about the boundary level. So you're not only just, decluttering takes a whole other level of boundaries, right? If you've cluttered your whole apartment, there's no way for movement, right? There's no place for people to enter. You're not really connecting or you're not letting people in, right? You've blocked them.
And remember, as if you're sitting and listening, like, gosh, I'm really overwhelmed, as you start to maybe clear up your office, you're going to have less mental clutter. You clear out the kitchen, you're going to eat healthier because you're like, I
I
have space to
could
create
not agree with you more.
meals.
Could not agree with you more. I very much so did that. Like my big on the cleaning, like my desk being like good, like you were talking about. And I like the kitchen. You just do one part of the kitchen and you start to change your thought process. You're like, oh, okay, all right, let's do something.
Yes.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Do you love, are you big into the organizing like pantry shelves, like where people do like those little um drawers and stuff?
I do whatever the client desires. I'm
Oh,
about
great.
keeping it. I'm a huge eco organizer. So can we repurpose something around the house
Oh,
to
great.
do
Okay.
that instead of having to buy a
Buy
container?
something
But
new.
it's, I'm not like super rigid. I mean, there are
Yeah,
people that need to be super organized and you go do you. I'm about, does it fit with your lifestyle? Can you find what you need when you need it? Or you feel when you walk in your home, I feel good.
that's
This
great.
feels, my home feels good. That's my goal.
My other question for you is, do you feel that like being that you're not as rigid, do you feel like people that have more open space are more open, or people that are like, not that they're hoarders, or but people that are more like have more things or more furniture or more things or more items, that they're more close-minded?
No, I
Do you
have
think
not.
they
That is not.
reflect?
Well, when you
Okay.
say open space, I'm imagining an open concept home. Is that what you
Okay.
are saying, or
Yes
meaning
and
more like,
no. I guess I mean, doesn't mean just because someone has to have a bigger, not bigger, more um I guess it's less more open area, in whether it's an
okay, because like
apartment
our
or a
last
house.
house was very open, and this
Okay.
house was built in the 50s, so it's more traditional
Hmm.
rooms, like so I was
Yes.
no, I've not found a difference with that.
Okay. I don't know. I just was wondering if
Hey,
there's
it's
a
a good question
correlation.
to ask. It might be it's I'm sure true for some people.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know because I've had someone on about feng shui and they talk about some other different parts, and I was like, oh, it's not my expertise. So I just was wondering. That's why I
Well,
want
and the
people to.
first thing they'll tell you in feng shui is to clear your clutter.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I would love for those to reach out to you. So please tell us your website again and how they can reach you.
Thanks. It's reawakenyourbrilliance.com. I have got a free clutter assessment. If you sign up for my newsletter, have you ask a question and you learn your clutter priority, and I give you a take action to get started. Find my podcast books there. Books are also on Amazon, Google Play,
And what's
and
your podcast?
Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out.
Clear. Love it. All right. We'll put that there too. So thank you so much for being on the show and taking your time. And we really appreciate it. And as I tell those, this is another way of kind of redirecting your health, because we don't declutter our mind and declutter our life, where you're not going to get much further. There's going to be a lot of blocks. So thank you so much for being on the show and taking your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for bringing mindfulness to people that they can do every day.
I really appreciate it. So I want to tell those listening, thanks again for joining in. And whether you're listening or watching, make sure you find a mindful way each and every day. And hope you guys have a great day.